My name is Mutaci Pangesu, and this video for introduction to linguistic, and this is about existence of Malay tribe. Malay is certainly more clearly talking about Islam, because both are inseparable parts, like two sides of a coin. Malay would have no meaning that it could not be called Malay if Islam itself was far away or kept away might be removed from the Malays, because in the earliest days of the arrival of Islam in the Nusantara region, it turned out to first enter the Malay region in Sumatra, then develop along the coast in the archipelago Islam. Islam is believed to have developed in the archipelago on the 8 to 11 am. The author seeks to position Malay in the lens of history, culture, and Islam in the hope of providing formula in the midst of an increasingly complex life lately. Malay refers to those who speak the Malay language and practice the customs of the Malays. The word Malay may be derived from the name of a tributary called Sungai Melayu in the upper reaches of the Batanghari River, Sumatra. That is located the Malay Kingdom about 1,500 years ago, before or during the Srivijaya Kingdom. In terms of etymology, the word Malay is said to come from Sanskerta Malaya, which is hill or high ground. There are also historical sources that say that the word Malay originated from the Malay River in Jambi. Hiro Master, Putaijin, and Martin Cooper say that the Malays are those who are native to the Malayan region, a region on the Malay Peninsula. Malays also reside in Brunei, Singapore and Indonesia, southern Thailand and Cambodia, as well as outside Southeast Asia. One of the opinions that the word Malay comes from Tamil, which means mountains. Probably in the past, Indian sailors and travelers came from the west coast of Sumatra through the Indian Ocean and saw an island full of mountains from end to end. Another term Malay issued by UNESCO in 1972 in an ethnic Malay nation in peninsular Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Filipina, and Madagascar. The term Malay to refer to the name of the nation Bangsa is a rather recent development in terms of history, namely after the existence of the Malacca Sultanate. The Malays and Javanese nation had a high civilization in the 19th century. Kay Himni disagrees with the opinion that Malay is cognate with Champa. The various theories of the origin of the Malays put forward by archaeologists and socio-anthropology are not always exactly the same, and are often different. A very important thing is that it has been the year that people live on the Malay Peninsula, and those people are undoubtedly the ancestors of the Malays now. This Neolithic group is often called Proto-Malay. In relation to the definition from a socio-anthropologist's perspective, it is worth explaining that the Malays have existed since pre-Hindu Buddhist times, subsequently developing and spreading to various corners of the world, defining Malay as a historical and cultural consciousness. In the writings of Mahyuddin al-Mudra, it is said that due to the length of the historical journey, the breadth of the distribution of areas, and differences in experience with other nations, the level of influence of the EU pillars on the Malay ethnic group between each other varies. It is located in the name of Malay ethnic group that is different because of its environment, the intensity of its interaction with other cultures. The life of the Malays as expressed by Valentin that in fact the Malays are very ingenious, smart and very polite human beings throughout Asia. The view given by Valentin, of course, is very reasonable because the Malays are a nation that is very flexible towards highly external cultural accommodation. So that Malays are not only part of a tribal entity based on physical form, but have meaning as a nation with an attitude character, as stated by Valentin. The accommodation of the higher culture is due to the Malays themselves, who have ceased to have relations with the nation found in the archipelago, and even to very distant regions, especially the Indian, Arab, and Persian regions. Moving from one place to another will transmit a certain culture. Cultural diffusion does not Cultural diffusion does not have That does not have to be only through the process of migrating a certain group of people to other regions, but through the process of trade that has been carried out by the Malays is also a part that should be considered. If you look at the dynamics of the Malay kingdom content in history, spread through how the coastal and maritime-based areas, the two great Malay kingdoms in history, Punan and Sriwijaya in the early century AD, were maritime not all land-based kingdoms. In the Malay world, what originated strikingly was the development of maritime cities that grew into giant cities, especially those located on the banks of the mouths of large rivers. With its maritime-based Sifa, with its maritime-based Sifa, it has ushered in the Malay kingdom as a metropolis in its time. The decline experienced by the Srivijaya kingdom in 13 to 25 brought influence to small areas that had not previously played a role in the international trade by the sea. The emergence of Malacca into a new commercial center found its momentum. Initially, the area began to mean for trade. In a short time, it became the most important port on the coast of the Strait of Malacca. The life of the Malay people is closely related to shipping and trade. So from here, it is very possible that there will be cultural diffusion as intended. Although later it will give us its own nuance in studying and searching for the socio-cultural Malays themselves, because they have been mixed and experienced cultural development based on the era they have come to. The other side shows that the adventures and voyages of the Malay people are what ultimately enrich the nation's culture and even become the identity of the Indonesian nation. Not only stopping there, Martin van Brunissen noted in his book that among all the nations in the Makkah, the Javi people are one of the largest people since 1960. Malay is the second language in the Makkah. Those who intended to study after performing the Hajj usually stay in Makkah for several years. This is where they became the main transmitters of the intellectual religious tradition of the Islamic tradition from Islamic scientific centers in the Middle East to the archipelago, which in the end was a tremendous influence in the development and experience of Islamic values in the social life of diversity until we feel it today, even though at the time the archipelago was still an area boxed in by local and royal powers. The achievement of Malay life not only attached to Islam but also a very complex achievement. Through trade that shaped and spread culture to become a conquering nation of other regions, this achievement of course is not only interpreted as a historical event that is only to be remembered in our collective memory in seminars or in academia, but we position it as a nation's history that can inspire people now to build the future of the nation. The interpretation of a historical event is a must, so that the essence of historical events can be absorbed and interpreted in life, can build a higher and grander civilization for the welfare of mankind. From a religious point of view, the attitude of taking lessons toward historical events is one of the important parts of life. The spread of Islam in Melayu went through two stages: stage of rival or arrival and withstand development. Various opinions about the arrival of Islam to Melayu. Some say the 9th century Masih. Some say to the 9th century. Some say in the 8th century AD, and some say even earlier. Namely, since the time of the Prophet Muhammad, namely the 7 AD, Islam has arrived in Melayu. One thing cannot be denied is that Arab commercial ships had arrived in Melayu some before the birth of Islam. The Malay archipelago has been famous for its rich region with much needed produce from foreign countries. Islam is believed to have developed in the archipelago in the 8th to 11th centuries AD. In its spread, it was suggested that Arab, Persian, Turkish, and Malay traders play an important role. In Chinese, New Muslim traders are referred to as Tashi people. Their place of detention is post and is intrinsic with Pasai in Aceh now. The Tang dynasty news said that the Tashi people had attacked the Kalinga kingdom in central Java during the reign of of Queen Sima in the late 7th century, but the intention was cancelled because of Kalinga's strong defense. They are also said to have helped Muslims in Pulau Aceh establish an Islamic kingdom in the 10th century AD. Next is Malay culture and the wisdom of the living environment. The Malays have a good socio-cultural function to manage the environment harmoniously. In the culture system of the Malays, it can be clearly seen how cultural values give guidelines and directions so that environment is maintained. All of them are contained in different aspects of culture, both verbally and in the act of real deeds. One of the Malay traditions in maintaining the balance of the environment is by farming in swampy areas, having the habit of growing rambia and tassels on the edge of their fields. The rambia court has made their fields get reserve of water storage when the dry season arrives because this plant can store water. Meanwhile, rambia can be used as woven goods, including being made into a go for rice transporters. Rambia trees have many more uses. Rambia leaves are used as a roof, while the sago can be processed into food if their fields are not spared. The tradition of preserving other growth can be seen in the tradition of keeping durian trees found in Malay villages in the Malays, especially in the villages of the watershed as a preferred place for durian. If the durian is already fruitful, the Malays have a tradition of taking the durian fruit by not being climbed, but allowed to fall of the ripe fruit. If anyone, especially children, is about to climb, they will be warned that the climbed durian will not bear fruit again. Instead, the stem will die. Prohibitions containing myths need to be conducted in-depth research into their veracity. But importantly, with the ban, the durian will be allowed to cook, not in climbing, which will cause the young durian will not be taken and it will be damaged. This tradition is important for the preservation of durian trees that even have seeds that are ready to be planted. Other traditions to preserve in the environment include the sialang tree, a tree that is nesting place for bees. Sialang wood is in form of the water cempeda. Fig wood, sulbatang, and so on. Taking bee honey should not be carelessly. Bees should not be perished to take their honey. For this purpose, a ceremony was held presided over by a shaman and his device, who was given the task of taking honey bees. He can safely take bee honey by bringing the chewing smoke closer to the bees. When the bee is hit by the smoke, then the bee evades. Thus, the honey is easy to take. Of course, because of the awareness of how great the benefits of sialang bees are, the sialang wood the sialang wood where bees breed shall not be cut down casually according to Malay custom. Whoever is caught cutting down a tree for a reason that is not strong will be fined by handing over a white cloth along the damn wood he has cut down. Cosmological and ecological. The social function of the traditional Malay cosmics in environmental relation is derived for shamans, handlers, and silat teachers. Traditional figures of the king of the ulama nurturing the people with Islamic teachings and values, they have their own role in the matter of preserving the environment from the values and teachings of Islam. The Malays know that every human being is escorted supervised by angels. In a researcher interview with a Malay shaman, made an analogy or myth that very living thing in the form of wild animals and birds is escorted by an ethereal creature called Sikodi, a type of living creature that lives in wilderness. From this similar traditional view, no citizens dare to arbitrarily take, let alone damage the flora and fauna. If they feel they need it, they ask the shaman for help and instructions so that they feel safe taking it. To strengthen casually by ignorant hands, the Malay shamans, elders of the past, various stories about animals, birds, trees, rivers, and seas. Any object touched by an ethereal being can have supernatural powers, so it is called an heirloom. In the people in the Malay area, land can be used as a symbol of a person's social status or tribe. The more heirloom land a person has, the higher the social status of a person or his tribe. For the amount of heirloom land owned has a relationship with the position of a person as the original inhabitant. Conversely, a person who comes from a person or immigrants called Malalok, one with the tribe of origin, will have less heirloom land. The Malays also collected rotten branches and sugarcane written for sale. Based on information from several informants, they sold rotten manu about 50,000 rupiahs bar and 50,000 rupiah sticks for rotten sugarcane. Manau rattan is sugarcane rattan sold are between 3 to 4 meters long. The Malays took manau rattan and sugarcane rattan by cutting the rattan from the base and then pulling it. While pulling them, widget the thorns attached to the rattan segments. This rattan retrieval is not done by taking the rattan they encounter only. Instead, they take rattan that has been appropriate or according to the size set to be taken. In the era of the 1970s, in the narrative of informant Mr. Noor, a rattan that can be taken is rattan measuring 15 pieces or up to 2.5 meters. The rattan taking rule is still obeyed only by some indigenous people of the Malay people. Nowadays, many of these rules are not obeyed by the Malays, just as they take rattan that only reaches 7 to 10 pieces. This is because it is increasingly difficult to find rattan that reaches the size of 15 pieces. It was economic needs that caused some Malays not to maintain the local wisdom they had maintained so far. In addition, they have become familiar with consumptive culture. In the narration of the informant by Ahmad Paul, 73, while volatility is taken in an interesting way by being wrapped around two small pieces of wood. The goal is that the rattan lily thorns can be released when pulled. This is done considering that the rattan lily is small in size and also to minimize the energy that comes out. This method is the most effective way to carry the type of rattan lily. Rattan lily, in addition to being sold in the market, is also used to make equipment needed and used daily. The mass transport rattan lily by rolling the rattan jas as well as rolling the rattan as well as rolling the rope. The roll is carried by means of carrying which is carried out on the back. In addition to rattan in the narration of the informer Ali 65, Insay Maju in Kubu, orang Melayu, also used the sap of the damar tree. The sap of the damar tree in the past was used as a means of lighting at night. In the past, damar was a hereditary tool used and passed down from generation to generation. At this time, the use of resin no longer exists. Generally, the villagers use corson for lanterns and use diesel engines that are fueled by premium gasoline. That's all the explanation in this video. Sorry if there is a mistake in speaking. Please pardon my speaking. Thank you for watching.